Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for taking the time to purchase a ticket to watch Olga on our digital platform at Glasgow Film at Home. My name is Chris Kumar. I'm the programme coordinator for the festival, and I'm delighted to welcome the director of Olga, Elie Grappe. Do you want to say hello, Elie?
Hi.
It's so nice to have you. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. First of all, I'd just like to say Olga is such a incredibly well-made film. It at points it's really masterful the way that it's made and the way it's put together. Just in regards to the actual film, can you maybe just talk a little bit about how this film came to be and what inspired you to tell this story?
Yeah, so first I was working about music academies and dance academies a lot because I studied for a long time classical music in Lyon, in Lyon Conservatory. And so my short films were about that, and I did a documentary just after school. And in this documentary, one of the protagonists was a Ukrainian violin player who told me about how she arrived for her studies in Switzerland just before the beginning of Euromaidan. And the way she was talking about this story and the way she talked also about the images of Euromaidan and the way those images entered her life and her practice of violin and her concentration. And this was resonating a lot with political questions that I was asking myself at that time, and the collisions of the different subjects that I wanted to take for this first feature, because I wanted to ask this character, how does she reconcile this very strong desire that she has for her practice, and suddenly a wider stake, a geopolitical stake, and the march of history. Yeah.
Yeah, I think especially now, I think even more so as we've seen the news over the last few weeks, this film feels even more relevant with the sort of issues that are going on with Ukraine and things, and it's maybe a story that certainly people in the UK maybe haven't been as aware of in the past, possibly. Did you have any concerns with tackling a subject like this? Was there any worries on your part about looking at that sort of side of things?
Yes, I think I don't believe in universalism idea. I think this is an invention, and so I had to trust very much that this story of this violin player, when she told me, touched me and interrogated me, and that to share this question that it was bringing to me, I had to be as specific as possible to this situation, and to try to be very precise and as precise as possible. And as what I know is that I'm not a Ukrainian gymnast, so I had to also involve a lot of Ukrainians from the very beginning of the writing to the end of the sound mixing. The film was made with Ukrainians, so it was a way, to have the point of view of a sociologist, of a historian, of a gender studies teacher, but also from very cineasts and also a lot of people from the civil society, as we say, who were bringing very, very different, very ambivalent points of view on this subject, on those events. Yeah.
Sure. And obviously you talked about how you were talking to someone who was a violinist. In regards to the story being about gymnasts, what was it that attracted you to sort of making the story around that sort of aspect of things?
I was starting from zero towards the situation in Ukraine. I had to learn a lot. I had to study it. I had to question a lot of Ukrainians and to go a lot to Ukraine. We went like 12 times during the writing and during those 3.5 years of writing. So I had to really get involved in those research, and I had to be in the same level for the practice of my character. I couldn't start take some advance to the subject, to this subject of what she's doing. That's the reason why I didn't want it anymore to work on dance or music, because gymnastics was very mysterious for me, and it's so specific in terms of points, in terms of rules. It looks like a hieroglyph, the Egyptian hieroglyph in the beginning when you approach the first time. And I was interested to know what really touched me in this practice, even if I'm less interested by the artistic gymnastic or sports than the practice of it, the exercise of it. And this exercise is very synergenic. It's full of movements, it's full of sounds. So immediately I wanted to film it. And it's also a sport which is at the same time individual and collective, which was also resonating with what was going on for Olga. And it's not nothing also to show those young girls' very powerful bodies. I think it's completely under represented in cinema. Those young girls which are already so determined about what they want and so strong, yeah. After I spent maybe 1 year of writing to really know myself, why I was so sure about creating a link between gymnastic and revolution. And it came from the motifs themselves. The sound, for example, the sound of gymnastics weirdly sounds like the revolution. It's full of metal bars. It's full of explosions, of detonation. And so it was, and the movements of bodies also between the images and the practice of Olga. So it was a constant link between the two of something that doesn't have anything to do with. And this tension that it creates, I guess, for the that I wanted that it creates for the audience, it's exactly the tension that Olga is going through. She can't, after the first images, she can't go back to the training the same way. She has somewhere in her here, by being in the training, she's also hearing the revolution. Each minute spent in her own life is resonating to the fact to be absent of what's going on,
It's really interesting. I never really quite thought about that, but that totally makes sense, because the way that the practice sessions are shot is so visceral and intense, like you say, with the noises, and that mirrors the obviously the revolution scenes, as you say. In terms of actually achieving those shots of the gymnasts, I mean, how involved was that process? I mean, I imagine that took a lot of time and effort to really get exactly what you wanted from those scenes.
I guess it's also about giving a real space for the interpret. That's what I wanted to be precise, where the stakes of the scenes was the mise en scène, how to shoot it, because how to shoot it is so much connected on the point of view of Olga and on her state in each sequence. And the shooting was also made in, we were not shooting chronologically, so it was very important to keep that. But I wanted that this space of the stakes of the sequence, etc., had to be occupied fully by the interprets, with their own reactions, their own emotions, their own words. And they are not professional actresses, they are real gymnasts, real elite gymnasts, from the Swiss team, from the Ukrainian team. The coach was the real national coach in Switzerland, etc. It was shot in their room in Switzerland. but they are professional athletes. They are professional sports, women and men. So there was a lot of things that I didn't have to construct psychologically or artificially. That was also, even if the characters are really fictional, the way they are doing things is also based on the way they, on themselves. Little things, but which are really important in cinema: the way they walk, the way they look at each other, the way they prepare themselves for the training. This is not something that you have to construct because they are used to 30 hours per week of training, about being like exposed in front of 5,000 people in an arena, for example, or living away from their parents. We went through so many different dispositives that they were so full of experience of what is to play also.
And I think just touching on the performance, Anastasia, who plays Olga in the film, like she's incredible as the lead sort of character, the central character, I think. And the fact that she's not specifically a professional actress makes that performance even more impressive. How did you find Anastasia? Did you have to do a lot of casting for that, or how did that go?
Basically, I went to the Olympic centers. I went to the Olympic centers in Switzerland where we shot for the Swiss team. I also went for the rest of the Swiss team. I went to the Swiss championship each year for 3 years. And after 3 years of writing, I could see who was interesting for me in the way they were acting and being during those championships. And those gymnasts in Madlingen, the place where we shot in Switzerland, they were basically consultants for the script before to be even knowing that they were felt to be part of the cast. And Anastasia, I did the same. I saw her the first time in the European championship in 2016 in Bern. And she was in the junior team at the time. And then I went to the Ukrainian Olympic Center in Kiev. And I think we were announced because most of the people, they were turning to us, watching us coming. And the only one who didn't care at all about us was Anastasia. She was on the bars and she was so angry about not reaching what she wanted, the gymnastic trick that she wanted. And already she had this intensity, which was so very moving me. And that I knew that this intensity, I would have to not control it completely, to not be in control of this intensity that she had. And after we did a lot of tries, we did a lot of but you know, all those rehearsals, they were rehearsals for me to know what was working, what was not working in what I say. But I don't believe in bad actors. I believe there are only people who are well chosen or not to have the right space, to have the right place in movies. So it was mostly work on my side to try to know what was working in what I was saying or not. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I think as well, the film obviously deals with a lot of tough subjects, but at its heart, it is a coming of age tale. It's a film about identity, and it's quite a universal thing. So was that always in your mind as well, that you wanted to have that sort of core to the story, where it's very relatable for everyone, of growing up in a time and being unsure of who you are?
Yeah, I think the question of identity in the movie is treated in a very intimate way. That it was not about patriotic identity, for example. This doesn't make sense at all for Olga. Her country is gymnastics in the beginning. She thinks she can go from Ukraine to Switzerland, and the first time she arrives in the space in Switzerland, she's like home. And suddenly the others are entering, and she's not home anymore. She's a foreigner. And so the question of identity was really on intimately what's going on for her relatives in Kiev, and intimately what's going on with the new people she has to encounter in Switzerland. After I don't really understand the question of coming of age, like if something was coming, but those people that I think they are already elite gymnasts. They have already a full life of elite gymnasts, even if they are still 15, 16. So I say that because it was important to not show gymnastics as some kind of illusion that she has to leave, that she has to throw away. But instead of that, something that she keeps trying to practice, and it's really about how she can reconcile the both aspect of her life, and this new aspect, which is that politics is not only what's going on far away, it's also the gymnastics itself. It's politics. She cannot escape this dimension of her life, but it also means that she doesn't have to throw away gymnastics.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think coming of age, I guess that using that phrase for films is sometimes maybe quite vague, and people use it a lot for films about younger people, I guess. And I think I get your point. The film, these are gymnasts who are already at the top of their game and like are incredible. So yeah, that makes sense. In regards to just from your point of view of like filmmaking in general, were there any sort of influences that helped you when you were creating the film? I mean, what was your sort of influences growing up when you were starting to look at becoming a filmmaker?
I don't know. I watched a lot of films which were playing with different dimensions of things. Like I remember watching Paranoid Park, for example, who is really crossing the line of the character, and suddenly another line which shows all those images of skate and things like this. And I watched Foxcatcher also, which has also this political layer from the beginning to the end. Very strong movie, and towards the images of Euromade, I was also interested by Chris Marker, for example, who knows that even if the images he uses are images of a moment of reality, they are not real images. They are images which are already a distortion of reality. And this was very important to think the place of those archives in the movie.
Amazing. And just as we're sort of wrapping up, I mean, in terms of the film as a whole, I mean, what are your sort of hopes that people will take away from the film? So our audiences and the audiences that go and see the film, what do you hope that they'll take away from the film when they come out of the screening?
I hope so. Of course, I hope that they are going to be sensible to the Ukrainian question, and that it can bring them to this subject. And but mainly, I think that the question of the film, I wish that it keeps that it's still a question after the screening for the audience on how you confront your own personal desires, your own passion, or more generally your desires for things as an individual, and a more collective aspect, a wider stake, a wider political aspect of your life.
Well, I think the film's, as I said, the film's incredible, and the whole team, when we watched it, we thought it was just a no-brainer in terms of wanting to show it, because it shows so many different facets of filmmaking, as well as having a incredible story at the core of it. So we're just so delighted that we've had the chance to screen it at Glasgow Film Festival. And I guess my only sort of last question for you is, what's sort of next for the film? What's your plans, and what are your plans going forward as well in terms of your filmmaking journey?
We have still a lot of screenings in festivals, so it's really nice. As it's my first feature, it's everything looks like a surprise. So first, I thank you so much for those words. It's really touching me, and each time it comes as a very good occasion to also thank all the people that worked with me, because it's not a film it's not a film that you do alone. It was also a very collective adventure. So there are those screenings, but I'm also trying to work on the writing of my next project. So I'm in between the two, and I hope the film can live his life. We have around 25 countries are releasing the movie. So I'm going to follow it from Switzerland mainly, and yeah, I hope that as many people as possible can go to theaters to discover the film. Yeah,
Of course. And I mean, of course, we will be, as like Glasgow Film will definitely be signal boosting this film once it gets a proper release in the UK and things. We'll absolutely be shouting out this film because we're so delighted to have it. Elie, it's been so nice to chat. Just to say as well to everyone that's tuned in to watch, Olga is eligible for the Audience Award this year, one of the few titles we've chosen to go up for our only award at Glasgow Film Festival. So please take the time to vote and let us know your thoughts. And yeah, Elie, is there anything you'd like to say just lastly to the Glasgow Film audience before we finish up?
No, I thank you for watching, and I'm really looking forward to coming to Glasgow myself, and to meet the public. And thank you so much for the invitation. And yeah, I'm looking forward.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat, and I'll catch you in person very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.